Welcome to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. Doing business in life with a purpose, serving others and achieving success. I'm your host, Steve Ramona. We created this show for you because we want everyone to be motivated, inspired, and educated to learn how to do business and life to make an impact in the world. I want you to think about today as you're listening to my guest. How will you serve today? And what impact will you create today? And I always like to mention impact because my guest is making a major impact in education and specifically college, which is, we were just talking in the green room, a pain in the you know what, but he's got some cool answers I want you guys to hear. Get your pad and paper ready. Let's take some notes. Brad, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, you bet. Right in the green room, you said late stage college planning. What the heck are we talking about here?
Late stage college planning. Yes. So I like to divide things into what I call late stage planning and early stage planning. So early stage planning is I've got a 2-year-old, 4-year-old, 10-year-old. College is someday. Should I, perhaps start saving and investing or do something in preparation for college? Late stage college planning is you've got a high school kid, you're there, right? Okay, it's time to really figure it out. You're visiting colleges, you're filling out forms, you're applying for financial aid, you're applying for admission, testing, all that stuff you have to do. Now, even if you've done a great early stage plan and you have a big pile of money, you still have a lot of work to do because you've got to figure out how to spend it wisely, hopefully. I mean, most people that have money don't say, I just want to spend it foolishly. And people that don't quite have enough for college have to figure out how to fill the gaps and understand need-based aid and merit aid and all the different things. So it's a process. And that transition is freshman, sophomore year in high school. Ideally, for a lot of people, I get people calling me with late juniors or even seniors. I call them the hair on fire crowd, where they want to do college planning, and what we're really doing is college damage control, because it's like, okay, you could have done this and you should have done that, but that was junior year stuff and that was sophomore year stuff. We can't do it, but we can at least clean up what we can and get you going forward. But ideally, you really want to start getting involved in this even before your student is potentially ready, right? You're going to do things like college visits sophomore and junior year, but parents, if you know college is coming, you could do some things freshman year, even if your student isn't mature enough to figure it out. That's fine. As a parent, you can start saying, well, are we going to pay for all of college or some of college? Are we going to get need-based aid? Are we going to get merit aid? Are there things we should be doing now in order to make the college process better? And of course, most people say, well, I have no idea. I don't know how the college process works. Yeah. Well, there you go. There's the next step, right? Is, okay, let's figure out how the process is going to work. And more specifically, how is the process going to work for us? Because I hear a lot of times people say something like, well, my brother-in-law didn't get any aid, therefore we're not going to get any aid, which is patently not true unless your brother-in-law has student that's nearly identical to yours, going to the same colleges that you're looking at, same family dynamics and same family income and assets and everything the same. So otherwise, your brother-in-law isn't necessarily a good test case for your situation. And I think that's, again, a lot of anecdotal evidence people start hanging their head on that is not very good.
My first thought is the kindergarten starting point better than the high school starting point, or does it really matter?
It can be, right? I mean, for some families, the reality is, so let's put some numbers out there. So the average public school right now is about $27,000 per year. Now that's the total cost of attendance. That's tuition, room and board, books, fees, beer and pizza. The whole cost of a typical student for 1 year. Average private school is more like $57,000. Now, if your income is such that you don't qualify for a lot of need-based aid, there's a good chance you'll be paying full price or close to full price, at least at the local state schools. Because you're not going to qualify for the major federal aid. You're not going to qualify for the state aid in many states. And therefore, you pay full price at the local state school. Now, the good news is the local state school is probably a reasonably low-cost option. But many people say, well, those low costs don't look very low to me. Well, that's true, but that's better than the $57,000 at the private school.
Yeah.
Or the $87,000 at Harvard and Yale. So all those numbers all those numbers we just talked about are all list price. at a lot of colleges, you're going to get some sort of aid, whether it's deed-based aid or merit aid, scholarships, all these things, all these various buckets of free money from the state, from the federal, from the college themselves, from outside sources, will bring your net cost to something less than full price. But the reality for most families is it's not, your net price is not likely to go to zero unless, again, you've got the fantastic student, or you really work scholarships hard, or you have a kid that can score touchdowns, or something that where your kid stands out.
Right.
But it wouldn't be unusual for your net cost to be substantially less than the 57,000 average public. Matter of fact, the average aid at that $57,000 average school is somewhere in the neighborhood of 27,000, I believe, on average.
Right.
And of course, averages are worthless because you're not average. You're either above average or below average, and it can be pretty dramatic. So I think that's kind of where you start, right? Is it's a complicated process. You got to understand how it works specifically for you, and you need enough time to get it worked out.
I love that because journeys need help. I mean, we go to a mechanic, he fix our car, dentist, they fix their teeth. College is a service that needs to be taken care of. Do you do this for community college as well? I've got a lot of here in California, in Northern California, a lot of parents, students are going to community college. Does this work there too?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh.
So all the colleges, anything after high school, right? Whether it's the 2-year, 4-year degree, the certificate, grad school, all that stuff is all part of the college process. Now, the local community college and the student lives at home, well, the total cost of that might only be $5,000 or $8,000. So the fact that you didn't plan isn't so painful, because if you end up paying full price, write a check for $8,000, while it stinks, you think you got off scot-free because you didn't write a check for $20,000 for them to go to the local state school,
right,
or $50,000 for the private school. So, but yes, the concepts are the same as far as need-based aid still applies, and merit aid and scholarships and student loans and all that stuff. It doesn't really matter what education. It's just any sort of
college community, right? Walk us through a journey of, let's start at freshman. Parents have a freshman. They reach out to you and go, I'm scared about college. I see all these numbers that you just gave us, which are great. What's the journey you take them through?
Right. So I think it starts, again, what is their philosophy around college? I've had many parents say something to the effect of, I had to work really hard in college, therefore I want to make it easier for my kids, so I'm going to pay for everything. Or just the opposite. I had to bust my butt to get through college, so they're going to bust their butt to get through college. I had to pay for it all. They're going to pay for it all. Well, the challenge, of course, is when you and I went to college, again, at least when I went, I don't know how old you are for sure, but when I went, it was very low cost, relatively speaking, to what it is today. So I was able to earn through summers and weekends almost all I needed with a student loan on top of it, and I could just take care of college. Today, the student loan hasn't increased for years and years, so a typical freshman can borrow $5,500 at that average state school that now costs $27,000. So they're $22,000 short. Show me a kid that can earn $22,000 in a summer, and I'll show you a kid that probably doesn't need to go to college.
Yeah, I just thinking the same thing.
They're already doing something they're doing well. Yeah. Maybe they should keep doing that. Who knows? But that's the challenge, right? Is the costs have risen, and so now the whole process, and we're getting into the is college worth it type of questions now. If it's going to cost so much, when is it too much? When does it not make sense? And that's, again, the part of the college process of, if you're going to spend this much on an engineering degree and go to work and, start at 85,000 and be at 120 in 5 years, that's a lot different if you're going to go to the same college, pay the same amount of money, but get involved in social work and start at 45,000. And in 5 years, still make 45,000.
Yeah.
So the math is different, but and again, it's not just math either. It's
also a lot of emotions and decisions.
Exactly.
And so I can imagine, you start this with the parents at freshman, but by the senior year, the whole idea's changed. So it sounds like you're going through this changing all the time. You're sticking with them. You started freshman.
Exactly. Yeah. I guess I got off track there. Sorry. So that's freshman, right? What do we want to do and all that stuff? As you move into sophomore and junior, well, now it's time to get to some reality of, okay, we know what the student is interested in. We've got some majors. The student's working on what the student does, which is, what do I want to be when I grow up? What kind of college am I looking for? What kind of majors? Let's write the essays. Am I taking the right coursework to get into the college that I'm interested in? All that stuff. The parents, on the other hand, saying, are we going to qualify for need-based aid or merit aid? Can we entertain a private school or a public school, or what, is our budget 25,000 a year or 50,000 a year or 100,000 a year? And how many kids have to fit into that budget and all that type of stuff.
Right.
So you each have and then the stuff you do together, which is college visits and college research. The reality is, for upper middle income and up, most families are going to pay at least 10, probably 15 or 20 or 25,000 out of pocket to cover college at the low end. You can always spend more if you find, there's lots of schools that are very expensive that may end up not giving much aid and be even more than that. But occasionally I have someone that's earning well and they say, well, we need to get our college cost to 5,000 a year. And it's like, well, that's not feasible for the typical 4-year college. That's just not reality. So that's the other piece of it, right? So what is reality compared to desires, right? No, nobody wants to pay for college. On the other hand, there is, some pricing constraints where you will pay some for most families. And that piece gets smaller if your income is lower and your needs are higher. But, so I have a giveaway out on my website that's called the net price of college by income. And the very low income, the 0 to 50,000 crowd, they might pay $5,000 or $10,000 for college net because they get federal aid and state aid and other things, again, on average. But that's very painful when your income is that low. And then when you get to an income of 150,000, now you might pay 25,000, which is also very painful on that income. Yeah. And then if you get to the real high incomes at the 300,000, well, now a lot of the private schools might be 60,000, which is very painful at that income. And that's kind of how need-based aid works, right? We'll give you aid if you need it. Well, if you earn 300,000, you don't need it until you get to 60,000. But if you earn 40,000, you need it right out of the gate.
Right.
So, and again, that's the way the system works. So understanding the realities compared to your particular situation.
What happens in this journey, they get to senior year and the kid goes, I'm not going to college. And the parents decide, okay, they're going to do a trade or get a job, whatever they do. Does that affect it at all? Or is it just a decision they made? Hey, we've gone through all this. We decide not to.
Yes. Well, right. And that's why we start talking about early stage versus late stage. I mean, when you're in late stage planning, I have worked with families that are, well, the options are, maybe community college, maybe a low-cost state college, but there's a chance they're not going at all. But we've got a couple other kids that are more likely to go, right? I mean, I don't run into the people that are saying, well, none of our kids are going to college. I mean, that's what I do. I don't serve those people. So for the people that I'm, meeting with, consider education important and want to do what they can to help their kids and that type of thing. And they're just trying to figure out how to make it all work and still retire and still do other things. And, it can be done, but it's, again, and the more planning you put into it, the more likely you'll have success. But yes, so that's, so if things change, a much more rosy scenario than my kid doesn't want to go is my kid did a fantastic job on all these scholarship applications. It's not going to cost us anything. I have all this extra money now.
Yeah.
Right? Which is the same result of them not going, but now they're going, but they don't need our money. Well, then you redirect the money to the other kids, or you reabsorb it back into your own needs or whatever it is. So you kind of roll with it. And that's, the planning is a process, right? You don't say, well, this is our plan sophomore year of high school. And then you stick to that plan no matter what happens. It's more of this is where we are now. And this is what we need to do now. We're going to do some visits. We're going to get some reality checks, and we're going to visit some big schools and small schools and local schools and private schools. And turns out we really like the expensive privates, but it also turns out we're not going to get much aid. So I guess we're going to have to go like something else because it's just not realistic.
Yeah.
Or oh, well, it's only going to be 60,000 a year, so I guess we can cover it. So we're happy, right? I have,
Yeah.
there's lots of people that'll spend large amounts of money on education. There's nothing wrong with that,
No.
right? I mean, you're driving down the road, you look to the guy next to you, and he's driving a $150,000 car. And some people would say, oh, well, that's a waste of money. Well, the guy driving it doesn't think so. He
No.
bought it,
Exactly.
right?
That's a great
So
point.
some people will point at somebody saying, well, I spent $150,000 on an education for one kid.
Yeah.
Lots of people say, well, that was a waste of money. It's like, well, okay, that's true, but I had it, so I wasted it the way I wanted to. Isn't
Again,
that the ultimate of, where we all spend our money somehow. We have nice vacations, we have a lake home, right? If
Yeah.
you're paying for college by giving up the lake home, that's fine. Where I have the issue is if you're paying for college by blowing up your retirement or destroying your financial future, that's when it's all of a sudden it's like, well, maybe there's a better way to do this. And but then I work with many people that can easily afford to pay full price. They just don't want to.
Yeah. And
And
it's their
if they can-
choice. That's
Right,
what I love what
exactly.
you're saying. It's the choice of them and not us telling, you don't tell them the choice. You just gather information, go, here's your options. You guys
Right.
decide. And it's more than that, but I
Right,
simplified it.
exactly. So there's two steps to the process. One is find a school that's at a good price for you, whatever that means. And then if you're going to do it, how do you do it efficiently? Right? If you're going to go buy the sports car for 150,000, if there's a way you can use your business to finance it or something and it saves you a bunch of taxes, well, then by all means do that. Right? You do it as efficiently as you can.
Yeah.
Same thing with college, right? There's ways you can leverage business ownership. There's ways you can leverage your savings and investing. There's ways you can, need-based aid is another great example. It's kind of like taxes, right? When we started paying taxes when we were very young, we just kind of did what we were told. Eventually, that tax bill started to get higher and higher, and we said, no, this hurts. There's something I can do so it doesn't hurt so much.
Yeah.
And then the accountant says, oh, well, yeah, here's how you do retirement. Here's how you pay for healthcare. Here's some tricks of the trade. Oh, well, great. Let's start doing those. Financial aid is kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
You want to fill out the forms accurately, which is just like taxes, right? You fill out the forms accurately. But then there's tax planning and financial aid planning, which is what do we do in our life so that when we fill out the forms, we put in better answers than what we would have otherwise, so that we get a better result than what we would have otherwise.
Yeah.
So families can do financial aid planning, and that tends to be a late stage item that you start freshman, sophomore year of high school. But what's interesting is there's a look back, essentially. So you have a high school senior right now that's going to graduate in 2024. They're currently filling out financial aid using 2022 taxes.
Yeah.
So it looks back a full 2 years. So that means that you would have had to do your planning for the taxes at the beginning of sophomore year.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are the parent of a sophomore, you've got right now, actually you're a parent of a freshman, you've got a little bit of time right now because 2024 is not on your is not going to see the colleges are not going to see it, but they will see 2025. So you have this year to clean things up to make 2025 as good as you can. To give you an example of that, I had a student that had a very generous grandfather who gave him $20,000 worth of Google stock. Well, guess what Google stock did? It appreciated a lot. It was worth 75,000 by the time, and we did some financial planning and said, well, wait a minute, if we report this in financial aid, we're going to lose a lot of aid. So we need to shift this money can't be owned by the student. Assets that owned by the student are assessed more heavily than the parent. So we need to shift it around.
Yeah.
Well, what happens when you sell Google stock that went from 20 to 75?
Capital gains.
Capital gains. Now all of a sudden there's a bunch of taxes that the student has to pay. And the taxes, if the college sees that will blow things up.
Oh.
Luckily, we were able to do it in the year prior to what the colleges will see, and we got everything cleaned up. We literally sold that stock December 31st of the year prior. And then we had, and again, we didn't even have it reinvested or anything yet, but at least we got the taxes in the right year for the student. And then we were clean going forward. But with that look back, those decisions need to be made, freshman, sophomore year, not junior, senior year.
Right. This is a journey that's so complex. I mean, You're really breaking it down, but you also showed people need you.
Yes.
They can't go through this. There's no way you can DIY this. I'll put it out that way. You're not going to jump on YouTube and do this. You need Brad to walk you through. You said something in the green room, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs with college. A lot of them are on this audience. A lot of them have been guests. What do you have for that? You say something unique.
Right. Exactly. So there's a number of groups out there that need to do or can do extra stuff, either need to or can do extra stuff on top of what everybody needs to do. So everybody's visiting colleges, everybody's saving and investing, everybody's doing all that. But if you're in a divorce situation, there's some planning opportunities about, well, which parent is going to be on the financial aid forms and who owns the assets and how are we going to be fair and lots of stuff there. If you have an athlete, makes things extra complicated. Another big one, though, is if you're a business owner or run rental property or do those kinds of things, you now potentially have control of your income.
Yeah.
And income is a key component of need-based aid. So you might say, well, this is the year I'm doing financial aid for all 3 kids. This year is going to be really low. So you plan ahead and say, well, because of that, a couple other years might have to blow up a little or something. And then you have to decide, was it worth it to blow it up in a couple of years in order to have one good year or not? And it really depends on, what you'll gain from that. So you have to kind of make those decisions and figure it out. But because you're an entrepreneur, you have that control. If you're a W-2 employee, you go to your boss and say, well, don't pay me this year, put all my pay into next year. I mean,
crazy.
most bosses are going to say, no, we don't do that here.
No,
Although I did have a couple. I had, a vice president who was a key employee, was able to go to the boss and say, I'm due a bonus this December. I want my bonus in January. And then he had enough pull up the company to make it happen.
Yeah. The bonuses I can see. Payroll is tough because it's that weekly, monthly thing. I could propose it a little bit.
Right. Exactly.
So the entrepreneur, because they're in control of their income, they can bust out in January and take 11 months off and slow down their income, tell people to pay them later or whatever that you teach them.
Exactly.
That's powerful. That's a powerful tool.
I slowed down the invoicing. So lo and behold, my December receipts weren't very good because I forgot to send out the invoices till January.
Yeah.
Or whatever, right? I mean, so, and again, it doesn't always work where you need to, understand that if I'm going to do something, it needs to be to my benefit. And if it's like, well, it'll help for this year, but it'll blow up that year, is it worth it by the time you balance it all out? And a lot of times the answer is yes, but occasionally it's no. Another great example is, we earn $1 million and we've got this investment over here that's being counted against us, so we're not going to get any aid. It's like, well, the $1 million that you're earning already disqualifies you from aid. It doesn't matter where your investments are. We can't hide the money and all of a sudden you're going to get aid because of that income. Yeah. But some families, it's like, well, our income is fine. It's just that we just had an inheritance. And now we've got this extra, $500,000 that we didn't know we had to report till all of a sudden we do. What can we do? Well, again, if you've got some time to shift it around or plan accordingly, a lot of times there's a lot you can do.
Yeah. And that's what you do.
Yeah. All hope is lost for need-based aid. So now the other thing is need-based aid is just one tool in the toolbox. More than half the people I work with never get any need-based aid. They just have to sharpen the pencil on the merit aid, on the saving and investing, on getting the right loans, on business owner strategies, on athletic strategies, on scholarships. All the other things become more important because need-based aid is not part of the plan in your particular situation.
Yeah, we're getting to the end here and it flew by because I'd love to have you back for part 2 because you're really intriguing me about all this because you're saving people a lot of money. How long have you been doing this?
I've been a financial advisor since mid-90s and I've been doing college planning since about 2005.
Okay, that's 18 years. Yeah.
18 years. So I've done about 300 individual plans over the years.
Okay.
Where we've literally walked them through and done the aid and all, the whole process.
King caboodle, right.
I'm
not my head's spinning. I don't have kids, but let's do this. If I know somebody out there that's thinking about college, how can they find you and reach out to you?
Right. So everything I do is at our website, tamingthehighcostofcollege.com. And we've got you can certainly go out there and sign up for our newsletter. We've got a podcast there. We've got a lot of resources and a phone number there if you just want to reach out and call us. And we also have, contact us form and that as well. So again, free resources for some people that are just getting started and want to kick the tires a little. But again, for some, it's like it's go time. Let's just make a call or schedule an appointment. You can do that on the website as well and just get going.
Look at their options. And you're a servant heart by giving the freebies, the freemiums, I call them. It's great because it's a good teaser for business owners, a great way to tease people in a good way of here's what you're looking at. Do you need me or not? It qualifies people too. I don't really need Brad, and you don't have to spend the time with somebody that really can't be helped by you. And I want to thank you for being on the show. Like I said, I'll reach out to you if you're willing. Let's do part 2 because I can really delve into this, especially the athletic part. I'd like to learn more about that. Also, too, I want to thank you all for listening and watching. Don't forget my TV show, Together We Serve, which is Fridays at 2 p.m. Pacific and 5 p.m. Eastern. As I always say, go back and listen to Brad. Listen to what he's saying. There's some $1 million, well, maybe $1,000 tips here. But college is important. It's an emotional thing. It's like, well, we're talking about money. Then you throw your kids involved. It's super emotional and complex. And Brad's here to walk you through that. And as I always say, thank you for watching and look for our next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. We'll see you all soon.